Hi there, legal writers. Welcome to this Legal Grammar Redux video series with me, Jill Barton from the University of Miami School of Law. In this video series, I will cover 12 grammar topics that are also covered in chapters 19 and 20 of the handbook for the new legal writer. These topics include 8 grammar basics and 4 more advanced grammar principles. So let's get started with grammar basic number 2. And let's talk commas. So I will cover 5 rules here that should ensure that your commas are always in proper form. First, we're going to talk about non-restrictive or non-essential clauses. These are clauses that are set off, meaning there are commas surrounding them. And these are clauses that are not essential to the meaning of the sentence. Therefore, we can just take them out of the sentence and we can have the sentence work without that clause. These clauses might start with which, who, when, or where, or they might just add additional information to a sentence, as we see in this example, and be offset by commas on either side. So this sentence is proper grammatically. However, it cost the party writing this contract $2 million. And that's because the party writing the contract wanted a firm 5-year commitment. But because of the non-restrictive clause in the middle of this sentence, it did not have a firm 5-year deal. And in fact, it had a deal that could be terminated with just a year's notice. So if you think about a non-restrictive clause being offset by commas as something that can be taken out of a sentence and not affecting the sentence, this is what that would look like. So we have a contract that shall continue in force for a period of 5 years, unless and until terminated by 1 year's prior notice. So looking at it this way, it's pretty clear that this contract is not a firm 5-year deal, and it can be terminated with that 1 year notice. Now, if that second comma before the word unless is taken out, we have a sentence that again is proper grammatically, but it has the meaning that Rogers' communication intended. It has the first main clause, creating that firm 5-year deal, and it has a second clause that deals with these successive 5-year terms that are not firm 5-year deals, but that could be terminated with that 1 year notice. So commas and their placement matter, and they can cost millions in legal writing. So non-restrictive clauses often begin with which, or when, or who, and here it is an example from a Supreme Court opinion that does just that. The word which, it's always adding additional information, and it will always have a comma. The word that is adding information that restricts a sentence. So unless there's another reason for that comma, it will not have a comma. Here's an example from a Supreme Court opinion that does just that. We can't take off the part of the sentence that begins with that. The sentence would not make any sense. Now here we have 2 examples, both with the word who. The first one has no comma. The second one does have a comma. And the difference here is just based on the writer's intended meaning. Here, this sentence without the comma is really trying to describe essential information about this person. The sentence would not work unless we were giving the information that this person cannot remember his crime or that this person otherwise has full cognitive function. So those 2 parts of the sentence are essential. We can't take them out of the sentence and have the meaning that the writer intends. We do have a comma in this John Roberts sentence in the second example because we're just adding additional information. The sentence still works and gives the information that's most important if you take out that clause, but that clause adds additional secondary information, doesn't restrict the meaning of the sentence. That's why we call it a non-restrictive clause. Here's another example of that same issue with the word when we're adding information that's essential to the sentence in the first example, adding information that is not essential, not restricting the sentence in the second example. Some more examples from Chief Justice John Roberts. Okay, let's talk about comma rule number 2. This one also has cost millions. We will always use this serial comma in legal writing. If not, someone might think that our parents are actually superheroes, which of course could not be the case, right? So here are some examples, again from Chief Justice Roberts. Snowmobiles, comma, alcohol, comma, and freezing temperatures do not always mix well. So a serial comma, also called the Oxford comma, just sets off items of 3 or more in a series. And here we have John Roberts doing just that. Snowmobiles, alcohol, and freezing temperatures. We also have snowmobile crashes, breaking up fights, and policing underage drinking, set off with that serial comma. A simple comma rule to always remember and always get right is that we are going to separate items in a date with a comma. This includes a date with the month, day, and year, as we see here highlighted, but not that example of December 2016. There's no need for a comma between December and 2016 because we don't have the specific date. The fourth comma rule is to separate items in a geographic location with commas. Here we have examples taken from the Supreme Court, Miami Beach, Florida, and then also an example from India. We separate cities and states. We separate cities and countries, countries and continents. Any items in a geographic list we would set off with commas. And then finally, this is an example that you can see. This is a rule that you can see in many Supreme Court opinions. We use commas when we want to pause. And so we will use commas around any phrase or a conjunctive adverb like however, when we need to add some clarity. We need to make sure our reader understands that there should be a pause. Now, for legal writing, we typically use a comma after any introductory clause, whether it's one word or two words or a very long introductory clause. And here we have commas setting off those introductory words, introductory clauses. We can also use commas to set off phrases in the middle of a sentence. Of course, we saw this in that longer $2 million comma example at the beginning, but that was a clause in between what could have been two different sentences. Now here we have just a little phrase interjecting in a sentence, and we set that off by commas, whether it's just a couple words or a longer clause that needs to be set off within the middle of a sentence. We also can set off clauses at the end of a sentence, and here are two examples of that. This last example is something you'll see very commonly. We want to add information to a sentence. We might describe a court opinion and then say stating that or reasoning that. This is an example from a John Roberts opinion that he then describes resulting in a closed canopy forest inhospitable to the frog. So he's adding additional information. It's not essential to the sentence. Sentence operates and has its basic meaning without that, but we're setting off that information with a comma, and it makes the sentence more readable. It allows the reader to pause and know we're getting some additional information here, but it's set off with a comma so that we can understand the cadence of the sentence more clearly. So those are the 5 comma rules that I will share today, and I want to remind you all that everyone can be a great legal writer. You are taking the right steps to get there just by watching these videos, and I hope to see you next time.